Welcome to We Are Old, Get Over It, the podcast where we celebrate the wisdom of age and maybe a little grumbling too. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast, We Are Old, Get Over It. Now, if you saw the podcast last week and you see the podcast today, we are not walking around in the same clothing, okay, for a whole week. We just did one podcast and now we're doing the second one. It's not a usual thing that I do because I usually wear different clothing. I don't know, Nora. She could wear clothing for a whole week.
I wear this every single day.
Every single day. So she's got a uniform.
Yeah.
She's got a uniform. Okay. Well, we're ready to start this episode. Last week, we tried to scare you. This week, we're trying to take away the scare and give you some reasons that you can build, that the reasons you need to build a digital fortress for yourself. So I want to welcome back to the podcast, Nora Duncan. Nora, real briefly, I'll just tell the story about you. Nora is the president. What was it? 13 years you've been the state director. Okay. Some places have presidents, some have state directors.
We have a president, but he's a volunteer. So he's a volunteer
that's it.
So
you're paid. Yeah. I didn't know you were a paid person. Okay.
I'm paid, yeah.
Yeah, because I speak to a couple of he's not, right? No. I have got one guy who's the president in Florida. He's a really nice man.
Yes, he is.
He told me he was a volunteer. I said, "You're still doing it?" He says, "Yes, I love it." So that's great. Doing an interview with him actually coming up. Anyway, so what we're discussing today is creating a digital fortress. And because you're so involved in fraud,
with in a way that I'm just such a fraudster, but
No, but you've learned all the tricks. So if you actually need to make money sometime, you could just go to the dark side.
Employ these tricks, yes.
I didn't advise her to do that, by the way, and I'm not advising any of you to do that.
I'm not that tech savvy.
I think we have to stop drinking the wine we've been drinking during the first podcast and just drink the water that we both have, okay? And we'll just continue with the podcast if that's all right with everyone else. Okay, so we're going to build a digital fortress today. And let's start out by talking about the invisible perimeter, credit freezes, and the dark web. Okay. A reliable source mentioned to me that every social security number in America is already on the dark web. Is that true? Or mostly?
Yeah, probably.
That's not a good thing, is it?
A lot are. That's for sure. That's for sure.
What can they do with your social security number?
Steal your identity and then use your stolen identity to defraud you of your life savings.
Which is really what they're after, is the money. They don't really care about you.
Some care about the identity. So, for instance, even though it's still fraud and theft and fraud, my social security number is or was, according to the IRS, in a letter I got in 2024, being used by someone to work. The IRS didn't seem as concerned about finding them as I might have liked or stopping that, but it did cause me to have to lock down. I can't file my taxes without having a brand new PIN, right? And creating a lot of security features. But at the same time, because it's on the dark web, I was getting a call from the ID protection that AARP actually provides us as employees, that they're like, "You're not in wherever, South Carolina, opening a T-Mobile account, right?" No, I am not. And then at the same time, my bank account got hacked. So it's being used for a variety of things, but it could be just to work because maybe you have a criminal record or, maybe you don't have a social security number.
Right. Well, in 2024 and 2025, there were a number of very serious breaches of social security numbers. So people should always be aware of that. And why is a credit freeze your number one tool? And how do you get it?
Well, you have to go to the credit bureaus for a credit freeze. We have some articles about it on AARP.org. It's pretty easy to Google this. One, and I have to get this right, but I think one credit bureau can freeze your credit for all three. There are some temporary ones and there are some more permanent ones. And then you have to have a good reason, like your social security number. The IRS told you someone has your social security number to get some things done. But the freeze makes it so that, for instance, you walk into a big box store, you have your purchase, they say to you, do you want to open a credit card and save 10% today? You would say yes, and you'd get that credit card. But if your credit was frozen, they wouldn't be able to get that. But neither would someone else. So one time, and this is way back in the day, like 25 years ago, my wallet got stolen, and they were able to use that theft to set up credit card accounts at multiple huge stores, buy tons of stuff on it, and then even alarmingly take out life insurance policies on me, because I think that was would you like to open a life insurance policy? Check yes. But they were able to go into those stores and open credit in my name and use that credit. If there had been a freeze, that wouldn't have happened, and it won't happen now.
Okay. And what are there? 3 credit bureaus that you would have to contact, and you should contact all 3, correct?
I think one of them, and this is where my exact details on these things sometimes get a little fuzzy, but you can, sometimes it's one takes care of all of it for you, and others it doesn't.
Okay. So they should research that, but that's one of the things that we should really be concerned about.
We've got tips on our website. The Fraud Watch Network, the AARP Fraud Watch Network, has tons of tips and how to do these things and instructions.
Okay. And what is the website?
rp.org/fraud will, generally speaking, get you to the main page where you might want to find anything from tips to stories about what the most recent fraud is to our podcast.
Okay. Let's talk about checks a second.
Okay.
I have people I give a check to. It may be made out to cash. It may be made out to that individual. Should I be using check?
Well, I use 2 a month, generally speaking, most times of the year. I have heard, like the penny, some things about checks going away. So we might all want to think about that. But check washing is a huge problem. And actually, even our partners at the U.S. Postal Service Investigators Division, they'll even tell you that, having things stolen out of those blue mailboxes on the side of the road that you think are safe and secure, that's way up. Theft out of those. Chemicals are used to erase the payee, cleans the check, and then those checks, once stolen and cleaned, will be rewritten to pay you, the thief, whatever they want, however much money they want, whatever gets them to clean out your account.
So in other words, let's say they get into the box, somehow they get your check, or even you paid them possibly with cash, somebody, and they take that check, and instead of cashing it, they have like they have an ink that removes, or something that removes everything but your signature, and they fill it in, and they therefore, now can they do it more than once?
I think if you're using digital deposit, couldn't you just keep washing it?
I guess you could.
Because if you take it to the bank takes it away from you, right?
Right.
But if you're using digital deposit, which is almost exclusively what I use, and many people do, I don't see any reason why we couldn't just keep washing that check.
Okay. Well,
eventually
another retirement thing we could be doing. Okay. Let's talk about Venmo and Zelle. Are we better off using that to pay people?
You just have to be careful. The B2B payments, they can be taken advantage of by criminals as well, right? So caution, but using digital wallets, Apple Pay, for instance, connect to a credit card.
Explain what those are. Explain what a digital wallet is.
This is all right. This is like the dummies guide. So everybody do your own research. But so Apple Pay, right? I load my credit card And when I say credit card, I mean credit card because credit cards have more protection than debit cards. And they certainly have both of them have more protection than a check, as we just talked about. But when you load it into those payment apps, they basically swap out the numbers. It is called like tokenization or something, but the merchant
Exactly.
itself never really sees your card number. So if you go to return something, and I kind of learned this a few years ago, I was returning something for my husband. So I grabbed his credit card just to make sure in case they said we want to put it back on the card that you used. They're like, we're putting it back on card. And then she said 4 digits. And I was like, no. And then I'm like, is it possible that he used Apple Pay? She said, oh, yeah, totally changes the number. So every transaction is a different credit card number, basically. So the person sitting there in front of you, or the evildoer who just, took over the computer, can't get the actual credit card number. So that is safer. Using bill pay through your bank is safer. Keeping mail out of the mailbox, right? Doing an electronic transfer where the bank is actually involved. So all of these things, I mean, there's a little bit of risk in all things, but there's a lot less risk in using these for legitimate purposes, not paying the person who hit you up on Facebook and you've never met, but legitimate purposes, like I'm paying my cable bill, that they're just much more safe.
Somebody else said to me recently when I was discussing doing the podcast that they only use credit cards to pay things because if something goes wrong, the bank reimburses them, generally
Yes.
speaking.
Or cancels, if you can prove the transaction was fraudulent, right? Like you get a fraudulent transaction on your credit card, that money has not come right out of your bank account, right? There's time to do a fraud investigation. The credit card company will say, okay, we cancel your credit card. You get a new credit card. Nobody else can use this credit card. I mean, the bank will cancel your debit card,
Instantly.
but they've
Right.
already walked away with the money, right? So
Exactly.
when you're in a dispute about it, there could be a time delay. Now you can't pay your rent. The automatic payment from your cell phone provider bounces, for lack of a better word, you overdraft. So there's all these other issues. If you don't have the resources to make up for the loss, even if you do have the resources, you don't want to lose the money yourself to have to fight for it to get it back. So yeah, I mean, debit cards in my mind are, I use my debit card to go to the ATM to get cash, and that is it.
I think that the debit card is a key to all your money.
Yes.
And you should be aware of that. And I had a friend who is in the police department, and he said you should not be carrying a debit card because if you by mistake put the debit card in to get gasoline and there's a scanner in that, somebody's got valuable information, not just that they can get money, but they get valuable information.
Yeah. And I mean, you can put your debit card into Google or Apple Pay also.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
so you can, if you're like, I don't want to
That's a
use a
good
credit
point.
card, it makes me nervous. You could at least sort of digitize that with
You're
your
right.
phone.
I didn't think of that, but that's a
You can
very
put
good
that there
idea.
too,
Yeah, that's a
or
very
use
good idea.
PayPal and things like that.
Well, the other thing that I would like to mention, and you could, refer to that also, is you can get an announcement, an alert from every one of your credit card companies, every one of your debit card companies for any amount. I have it for like $20. So if somebody wants to get less than $20 on my account, I may not know about it for a couple of days, but I'll know about it in 5 seconds from the time I pay that bill. And that has stopped a lot. For me, I was in an airport and I used my credit card. I paid. And by the time I landed another place, there was a bill.
Yep.
They scanned my card, but it was taken care of. I never heard of it again.
I have the same thing. 2 summers ago, I was on the Block Island ferry, and this one was weird. It was an Apple Pay, and I said, I don't understand how I'm getting an Apple Pay bill. So even that, when I say I don't think everything is totally secure, I don't know how this happened, but it did. But only once. It's happened 500 times with my credit card. I got the thing. a bookstore somewhere. And I immediately thought about my stepdaughter. I was like, I don't know how she would use my Apple Pay, but she's a big reader. So I'm like, you didn't do anything, right? She's like, no. And, within 5 minutes, sitting on the Block Island Ferry, I'm on the phone with my credit card company. The credit card's canceled, but it was that alert that I got from both my credit card company and Apple Pay that got me to stop it immediately.
Right. So we need to turn it around and use the internet and all the digital information we can get to protect us, because there are ways for you to build your fortress, but you have to start putting the blocks in place for your fortress.
I mean, honestly, sometimes all the notifications on the phone can be really overwhelming. Turn off the crap that does not matter and turn on the crap that does.
Exactly.
I don't need to know every time somebody, likes a social media post of mine. I can wait until I go into the social media to see. But I do need to know if someone has used my credit card.
So there's another famous quote from Nora Duncan: "Turn off the crap." I'm just teasing.
I mean, but it's it's overwhelming to get the constant notifications, and it distracts from the important. It's the junk mail of your phone, right? Like, you go to your mailbox and you're like, okay, like, you hardly ever even look at the mail sometimes because it's usually just junk. Not as bad as it used to be, but and yeah, it's distracting from what's important. There might be a notice of something important in your mail, but you've just got 15 catalogs you didn't sign up for.
Right. Okay. If I make a mistake, and let's say I lose $5,000 and I'm embarrassed, and I don't want to tell my family, what should I do? Just forget about it?
I mean, report.
Report. Okay. So now
you might be able to not tell your wife, but you should tell the authorities, because, some of these things help actually recover money. Some help give information that leads to international rings that the feds working with other countries have been able to shut down, but it's because people provide information.
Okay.
And also, you're going to want to change everything. Identitytheft.gov, file a report, change your passwords to everything. Just change everything.
So what we should be doing is we should be having somewhere written down a list of all of our credit cards, phone numbers of how we contact them, because if they lose the credit cards, you got to go back and figure it all out. And from that same situation, when Chase sent me a new card, I said, great, I have this new card, but what about all the charges that are going to come through on that card anyway? I started creating a list, and I was amazed that I had 30 different companies that were able to access my card. And you have to have that, because it even makes you feel worse, even though you weren't guilty. Somebody ghosted my card.
Your credit card company will, because this has happened to me, they're much better about it than they used to be. Any kind of automated biller they'll transfer over. But annually, at least, I have to change my credit card number for some reason.
Because you're a target.
And I'm like, okay, the gym. Okay, you have to go through who's hitting this up that are legitimate businesses that I've given authorization to, that I need to make sure continue to get paid. But my company has been able to be like, don't worry about it. And, I'll go, when I go into the gym, I'll make sure they have it. But for all I know, it was them who stole it in the first.
What, I don't know. You think they would be making a mistake?
I don't know. Just change everything is my best advice. It's hard not to make some mistakes. I mean, everyone makes some mistakes, right?
Do you have to change your husband as well? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
that's another Nora quote. Change everything.
Change everything. Yeah. I noticed in Europe from a decade ago, and a little bit now here, but it's still baffling to me that a decade ago it was common practice. You go to a restaurant, no one ever takes your credit card. Ever.
No.
They
For
bring you tap
years.
it there, you give it to them
For
there.
years, it was like that. I was always amazed. I
Yeah.
said, why aren't we doing this?
And every time I go to like a restaurant, they walk away with my credit card, which is every single thing you need to have to go online shopping.
Right.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, they walk away, they walk over to a machine someplace, and they
Well,
have a scanner in their pocket.
or they just write it down. I don't
Or
even
they
need to
write
take a
it down,
picture
I
with your
guess.
phone.
Okay.
I don't even need a scanner. If I was gonna just come up with magic laws, we'd all be paying everything. We'd never give up our credit card uh, to anybody to walk
Right.
off.
Okay. All right, here's my next question. Let's talk about well, we know about we discussed the social security cards.
Uh-huh.
We discussed the credit freeze that you could put on nationally, correct? Explain multi-factor authentication briefly. How does that
Yeah,
work?
multi-factor authentication.
Yes.
Even that is a little crazy. So you have to enter your email, then you have to be able to confirm via your text message, getting a secret code, or using a actual like multi-factor authentication app.
Right.
So for instance, I cannot log into my work VPN without using an authorized multi-factor authentication code provider.
Okay.
That, how all these things work and how and where they have weaknesses is not necessarily my expertise, but I can tell you, I know it annoys my father greatly when he is asked to, you know, multi-factor authentication. And I've tried to explain to him why it's so important, and why, he should lock down his accounts, not let any transfers out without that multi-factor authentication.
Right.
Um, a good example, like, our retirement funds that aren't connected to our work are all at one place, my husband and I. And
Mhm.
nobody, including me, can move money out of those accounts without probably a 3-step authentication
Mhm.
process. And I'm sure we're going to get to a place where everything's 3 steps, but that's the kind of thing you can do in these accounts, right? You can go lock them down. I will spend the 3 minutes of inconvenience if I need to transfer dollars being inconvenienced. It's a lot less inconvenient than spending 3 years of my life trying to get back my retirement savings,
Very good.
or
Very
maybe
good
never
point.
getting back my retirement
The
savings.
thing that I was talking about in particular that I couldn't come up with the word was passkeys. That seems to be the thing that everybody's doing right now.
Yeah.
I keep getting these notes here. We want to give you a passkey. I said, what? Okay. Describe a passkey.
I'm not sure I can any better than you. It's just another form of multi-factor authentication, but they're created by, if I understand it properly, they're created by apps that are designed to do this and that are individual. Every single thing's individual.
Well, it's biometrics is what they use. They use
Okay,
your
that passes.
thumbprint and your face.
Yep.
Now, somebody like me, I'm going to
Put
not
it
give a
on your
good pitch
computer.
for one of my phones, which
Yeah.
is a Pixel. Okay, I happen to love Pixel stuff. It's fine. Google's fine with me. Don't send me nasty letters. Okay, but I try to put my thumb on that phone. I have supposedly my thumbprints from both thumbs. Here are my thumbprints if you want to copy them. And somebody would probably do that actually, but it never picks it up on the phone. The same
So
thing with my face recognition. It doesn't record it. And now they're having me use this other thing called a passkey. Hopefully the technology is going to make it easier for me within my phone company, within the phone that I use to recognize me. So I'm not frustrated.
yeah, and I don't know why it wouldn't be recognizing. That's well beyond my expertise, but I do know that, for instance, my father, will go back to him because I sincerely doubt he'll be watching this podcast or any podcast.
Let
He
him know.
refuses to upgrade the phone, the cell phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's on, like, I got my mother a newer one a few years ago, gave him her old one, but we're talking, when I say old, we're talking 11, 12 years old.
Oh,
And I
that's
was
really
like,
old.
Dad, you're not going to be able to do what you want to do because the software is not going to update to,
Right.
and he's still, for reasons other than he's still giving me a hard time about it. I'm like, we could probably get one for like $100 that will do everything for the next 3 years. It'd be fine.
Okay.
But sometimes it's about the age of the phone and the software and the upgrades that the phone will take or not take anymore based on the age of the phone.
Well,
So
they
like
want to sell you.
thumbprint
They
is,
want to sell you more phones, so they're not going to upgrade it for 12 years.
yeah. I mean, the
Okay.
fact that the thing is still functioning at all is shocking to me, but
Okay. The last question I have about this. What do we do if you lose your phone? Everything we've talked about recently in this current discussion regards your phone and how important it is. And you need to do the passkeys, and you can do your Zelle with it, and you get your credit card information. And you dropped it in the toilet. Never happened to me. But or
well,
you left it in a taxi. You just don't know where your freaking thing is, even if you have the tracer on it. Well, okay, that's at least with technology today, you can track where your phone is and you can lock it. But if you don't know where it is, what do you have to do? What would
the cloud
the
is my
cloud?
best answer.
Okay.
Is go get it from you have to download, you have to back up to the cloud. These are tough things because like even my husband resists the cloud, and I'm like, well, because I don't know, he just thinks it's going to get stolen, and maybe he's not wrong. But at the same time, if you drop your phone in a toilet, the only way to get all that stuff back and restored is the cloud, as far as I
Absolutely.
understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I'm not promoting a company or another, but I walk into the big, beautiful white fancy store, like it's all gleamy.
You mean like an Apple store or something?
And
They sell apples there?
and
I don't
so,
know.
yeah, so
Okay.
I'm gonna have a Mac, and it's
Yeah.
gonna be, and
Me
you
too.
walk in, as long as you know your ID, you can purchase the new phone, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, whoop,
Right.
everything is restored.
So what you're saying is don't panic. As long as the stuff is being backed up to the cloud somewhere, you should be okay.
And listen, this is, again, you've gone well past my area of expertise, but that's how I operate. Now, maybe it's wrong,
Okay.
but I
Well,
don't know any other way to do
we're
it.
not gonna take that as advice from Nora.
Yeah, and one time, something happened to my phone that it could not. The screen just disappeared. Like, so I couldn't put in a passcode. I couldn't do anything. I brought it in. They were like, "Wow, wow." Like they are like, "That's, I don't know what you did." I'm like, "I don't know either." But there was no doing what I needed to do to get the phone to operate
Right.
properly. It buzzed a lot, but that was it. And that the cloud is what they were able to use to get it all, just moving it to a new phone and having me do my stuff there. Boop, I was back in business.
I think the advice I would give someone is contact your provider.
Yeah.
They have your information. And as long as you can provide them with the information that they need to prove that it's you, I think they'll be able to save you.
I don't know if they can restore your stuff, but
Really?
I don't know if your provider can restore.
Well, you know what? We
I don't
should
know.
probably
We should
you and
probably
I
figure
should
that out.
probably interview somebody from T-Mobile
Yeah, maybe that's your
or
next guest.
Verizon and see what they say.
That might be your next guest.
That could be.
I mean, I don't think contacting your carrier is a good idea, just to try to make sure, like, they can probably shut your phone down
Mm-hmm.
for sure, right? So that it's not used.
Yes.
They shut it down, but I don't know if they can restore. But they can shut it down, and disabling it will secure any information that somebody may be able to get out of there.
Do you use iTags at all?
Oh, you mean like AirTags?
AirTags, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yep.
And you think they're valuable to use and you think it's safe?
And I'm
just
when
curious.
I travel, I use one. I have information I shouldn't give out, but I have one.
Don't tell me. Okay, we'll
This is
move on.
actually thing. So
Okay.
I have one in my purse,
Okay.
but it's not me who has who tracks it. It's my husband, because I did that on purpose, because if my purse got stolen, if we were my stepdaughter lives in Manhattan. If we're walking around Manhattan and somebody runs off with my purse, I don't have my phone anymore. I can't find my iPhone. I can't do anything. So I have it's probably more for like, did I leave my purse somewhere rather than someone stole it? But he can look up where my purse is.
Perfect. Okay.
So that could be handy. It also can be handy with things like someone maybe has, dementia symptoms coming up and you're a little worried and you want to be able to track, and with permission, you can pop that in there. And what people do without permission is that's not good, but it's not my business. But, it can be a way to say, I'm just keeping a little extra eye also on someone I love to make sure that they're able to live independently. But if just in case something goes wrong, I have potentially a way to figure out where they are. I mean, my grandfather, I remember sitting around Christmas Eve one time in the house that he had gone to every Christmas Eve of, since he was 20 years old, and he didn't show up, and he was in another state, because he'd lost his way. We didn't have, obviously, when I was that age, these devices, but if we did, we would have been a lot easier to figure out where he was.
Of course. Okay. So do you think we gave the audience enough bricks for their fortress at this point?
I mean, I think there's some bricks there. It's hard. This stuff is like hard to keep up with, and it's time consuming.
Yes.
But it's important. And just to think about it, like, I don't know, it's like a little time consuming pain and suffering to prevent such significant loss and time consuming pain and suffering later.
Right.
And we all need to take our own advice, because we're probably all bad at taking our own advice on some of this stuff sometimes.
Right. I mean, I'm sure that you say, why? I know better than this, right? I'm doing this. I know I'm doing this. I shouldn't be doing this. Why am I doing this? I hope I don't get punished for doing this. and with that,
sometimes hope's not enough.
With that, we'll kind of end this.
Okay.
I do have a quote. The AARP will advocate for strong protections and support efforts to combat the use of AI to scam older Americans, as well as to disrupt elections and voting. We never talked about elections and voting. We don't talk politics. We have enough aggravation in general, so we'll skip that. But that is a quote from Nora Duncan.
Yeah, I mean, AI is a scary, scary thing. It's, cool when you use it to rewrite a paragraph so your email sounds better, or even ask for an itinerary for a trip you want to do. I did that recently and was like, wowed, honestly wowed. But its purpose was never for that. Its original purpose and its design was not for good necessarily. And it can be used for good and it can be used for bad. And we do a lot of education on AI, how to recognize it. We've got something called Senior Planet from Older Adults Technology Services. There's a nonprofit that we acquired pretty recently, a couple of years. So much stuff on AI. We do stuff on AI in Connecticut. It's hard to recognize. I mean, they're really in a place now where, like, my husband and I will watch, I don't know, someone will see a video and send it to the other one. And I'm like, is that real? And he's like, I don't know. And then we have to go try to figure, I can't tell, like, a lot of times. And good players will tell you it was used with AI. Bad players won't. So scamming people, AI is also, we don't want AI to be used for age discrimination in employment. There's all sorts of places where AI can be not your friend, and places where it can be.
Okay. Well, I think we'll end on that. The only thing is, I'm looking at your sweater there, and I don't have an AARP Connecticut.
You have to. This one's only for Team AARP Connecticut. Maybe I'll send you a visor or something.
Never mind. I don't need visors. I'm bald. I don't need visors.
Oh, okay.
I need hats.
I have a baseball hat for you then. You protect the noggin.
Did you have fun? See,
yeah, thank you.
You get this strange email. I know. And you answered it, and you ended up with me.
Don't think I didn't.
Uh-oh, I don't know what you found, God forbid. All right. Anyway, I want to thank you for being such a great guest and for giving us such valuable information. And again, all the information that we discussed today and all the garbage that we discussed is going to be in a transcript on our website. weareoldpodcast@gmail. No, that's my email address. Never mind. weareoldpodcast@gmail.com. You can get a hold of me. Don't send me hate mail, though, please. And also the website is weareoldpodcast.com. And you can get a hold of Nora at the AARP in Connecticut if you need advice, if it's an emergency. I'm sure she will be able to direct you to somebody to help you. Want to make sure that you protect yourself, your family, and your friends. And I hope to see you all next week, or have you hear me next week. Make someone laugh, as I always like to say, and don't tell anyone your safe word unless it's
Your
we
family.
need it. Yeah. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Thank you very much. And that concludes this episode of We Are Old, Get Over It. Thanks for joining me. I hope you found our conversation both insightful and entertaining. Remember, age is a journey, not a destination. So embrace the wrinkles, the forgetfulness, and the occasional tech frustrations with a good dose of get over it attitude. Until next time, keep laughing, keep learning, and keep getting over it. Ken out.
This podcast features a variety of perspectives. The views and opinions expressed by our guests are solely their own and do not constitute an endorsement by this program. Unless otherwise stated, this podcast does not endorse the products and services of our guests, but shares them for informational purposes only.